My wife had been planning her 30th birthday for months. 40 guests. Expensive champagne. A beautifully lit hall. When I handed out the 40 elegant, silver envelopes, she smiled, thinking it was a lavish surprise gift. She didn't know that for 90 days, I had been living with a ghost. And she didn't know that the man she had been sleeping with was standing right next to me, patting my shoulder.
To understand what happened that night, and why I didn't just break his jaw, you have to understand where I come from. Behind the old Iron Curtain, every single citizen lived two lives. The public life you showed the state, and the private life you protected from it. We were taught early on to never show our true emotions, to build walls, to survive by keeping our mouths shut. We didn't do therapy. We endured. I met her 7 years ago. She was bright, ambitious. She wanted the American dream, and I promised I would build it for her. And I did. I worked double shifts. I built a business from the ground up. I bought the house with the big yard. And then, there was Mark. Mark was my best man. We grew up in the same gray, concrete district. We survived the brutal street laws of the 90s together. Back then, if you didn't have your brother's back, you didn't survive. We bled together. I trusted him with my life, my business, my home. It happened on March 12th. A cold, unforgiving Tuesday. She was in the shower. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to fix her iPad. It was glitching, and I was just trying to update the software. And then, I saw it. It wasn't an obvious folder. It was hidden, disguised behind a simple weather app icon. You had to hold it down and enter a passcode to open it. But my wife was never good with passwords. She used the year we met. I typed it in. The folder opened. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't a drunken kiss at a bar. It was a digital archive of a parallel life. Hundreds of photos. Thousands of text messages. Spanning over 2 entire years. My wife and my best man. In hotel rooms I paid for. In restaurants I drove them to. And the worst part? In my own house. In my own bed. While I was out working those double shifts to pay for her lifestyle. I read messages where they laughed at me. Mark calling me the reliable ATM. My wife agreeing with him. Most men in the West would have screamed. Most would have thrown a punch, broken a door, or confronted her right there in the bathroom. But like I said, I come from a place where immediate anger is a weakness. Silence is power. I carefully closed the folder. I wiped my fingerprints off the screen. I set the iPad gently on the nightstand and walked into the kitchen to make coffee. When she came out of the shower, kissing my cheek, I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I didn't say a single word. And I wouldn't. For 90 long days. Sleeping next to a stranger who hates you behind your back is pure psychological torture. Every time Mark came over for Sunday football, drinking my beer, calling me brother, I had to force my hands to stay flat on the table. But behind the scenes, I was working. I spent those 3 months preparing in absolute silence. I didn't want a divorce lawyer, not yet. A lawyer just argues over money. I wanted a public execution of their reputation. Every night, while she slept, I backed up the iPad. I went to a print shop 3 towns over so no one would recognize me. I printed the most damaging messages, the undeniable photos, the receipts. I bought 40 thick silver envelopes, and I packed each one with the exact same poison. The night of the party was flawless. Mark stood next to me by the bar, patting my shoulder. "You really outdid yourself, man," he said. "She's a lucky woman." I looked him dead in the eyes and smiled. "She deserves everything. She's going to get tonight." Then midnight arrived. The room fell quiet. I took the microphone. "Everyone," I said, my voice perfectly steady, "I have a special gift for my beautiful wife. But it's a gift of truth. And I want all of you to share this moment with her." I walked around the room with the tray. I handed out the envelopes. One by one. Mark got the first. Her father got the second. I walked back to the microphone. "On the count of 3, I said, "I want you all to open them together. 1, 2, 3. The silence that followed was louder than any gunshot. You could hear the sound of 40 envelopes tearing open at once. And then, the physical temperature in the room dropped. I watched my wife's face. I watched the pure joy drain from her skin, turning to pure, paralyzing terror. She looked at her father, whose face was turning red with shame. I looked at Mark. I watched his champagne glass slip from his fingers and shatter on the hardwood floor. "Happy birthday," I whispered into the microphone. I didn't wait for the tears. I didn't stick around for the apologies, or the chaos that erupted 3 seconds later. I simply put on my coat and walked out into the freezing night. What this story reveals about the Soviet mind is that we are conditioned to wait. When you grow up in a system that watches everything and forgives nothing, you learn to absorb pain and convert it into cold, calculated action. Mark wasn't just a monster. He was a product of a world where loyalty was a currency you traded to survive. And I was a product of the same concrete. I didn't scream, because screaming gets you nowhere. I lost a wife that night. I buried a brother. I had to start my entire life over, from zero. But as I walked to my car in that cold parking lot, for the first time in 2 years, I was breathing clean air. I have to ask you, what would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments. I am the storyteller, and this is the Soviet Noir.